Welcome back, everybody, to We Are TPM with myself, Kyle Teixeira, sitting across from me, as always.
J-Tex,
John Teixeira. This week, as promised, we are back to discuss the real figures of operating and setting up a short-term rental. Really just the real figures of a short-term rental.
This is
Airbnb.
the fun stuff, right? We've been talking about what it costs to set one up. We talked about what it costs to operate it. And now here's the fun stuff, right? Like here's the fruit, the reward. Here's what you get out of it. Is it good? Is it bad? What is it?
I think it's subjective if this is the fun stuff. Because I'm going to run over a bunch of numbers.
Well, you're going to make it unfun, but
the amount that gets deposited into your bank account as the person experiencing that is the fun stuff, right?
I like to see my bank account going up.
Yeah.
It is going up, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
You checked it lately? No. I think that's the one I emptied a couple weeks ago. No, I'm just kidding.
Remind me to take you off that account.
So yeah, I mean, it's never a perfect science. So we're going to talk about 3 different short-term rentals that we operate and manage that are in 3, I'd say, significantly different situations.
Different products.
Yeah, they're definitely different products for different people, whatever. But again, this isn't a perfect science. You know, some properties have different things that others don't, you know, and but I think it'll be interesting to see that these significantly different businesses or products and these units, how on a percentage basis, how similar they come out on operations.
You know what? Just a little precursor to the end here. I feel like you and I had a conversation in preparation for this, and I feel like we're all going to be a little bit surprised at how it all turns out at the end. When we look at the 3 different ones to get together, like here's what this one did, this one did. There's definitely a surprising revelation there that I think doing this project for this podcast probably enlightened us a little bit. Yeah,
definitely. Right? And the figures, so there's a lot of ways people in the short-term rental industry, on TikTok when they talk about Airbnbs, a whole bunch of things. There's a lot of different ways that you can talk about these figures, because what we're going to use is, let's call it gross payouts, revenues, our actual revenues into our account. That's what we're going to use as our gross figure. So there's other ways you can do it to inflate these things or more complicated, like, you know, what the guest was charged and then breaking that down after the service fees and blah, blah, blah. So we're not going to do that. This is the money that, you know, if we're using Airbnb as an example, this is those transaction payouts that come from Airbnb to you after they take the taxes out and the service fees out and the guest taxes out and all that stuff. This is the net essentially payout, but we're going to call it the gross revenue.
What about the revenue from VRBO and bookings and our direct
that's
site?
Why
Are we doing that
different.
too?
So like if you book with us directly, you know, it goes into our thing, you know. But so yes, it's the net. It's what we're collecting, you know, which is what we call revenue. So this is gross revenue. The first unit we're going to discuss is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo in Orange Beach, Alabama. It's a vacation home.
We're starting with the fun stuff.
We're starting with the vacation condo.
Love it.
Because it's easy to call these vacation rentals, but like this is actually where people go for vacation. So we're calling it a vacation condo. So this is after service fees, channel commission, sales tax, that kind of stuff. Money in our account. Okay. So this one, and this is over a trailing 12 months. So we're going September 2021 to August of 2022. And there's certain reasons that part of that period is a little bit less than you'd see in a normal year, but it doesn't matter. Those are the months we picked. That's the range we're going to go with.
There we go. Love it.
Because this is actual figures. This actually happened.
Let's do it. Real stuff.
This actually happened from September 21st to August 2022.
Hey, before we do that, before we get into those numbers, okay, so this particular property, we talked about the cost of setup. And this particular property, we probably didn't have as much setup as we normally would, like on some of the other 2 properties we're going to talk about, because we bought the property furnished and mostly set up. We definitely had to put some money into it, but not as much as we might have, or that we did the other 2.
Yes. So there's part of So I picked these three specifically because they weren't set up in the last 12 months.
Yep.
There's more than 12 months have gone by since they've been set up. If I included these setup figures, there's another unit that we set up 10 months ago, right? That would have the setup figures and the operations that would skew all of this, but it'd be a different way of looking at it. I will get into that towards the tail end of this.
I didn't mean to take your fire away from you. I just wanted to paint a picture for people while they're sitting there thinking about if somebody's considering doing this, then we need to get.
Well, it brings up a good point. Setup is constant too. Mm-hmm. There's the initial setup. We call it initial setup because
capital improvements.
I've kind of summarized them in here to upgrades, right? But there's things you constantly have to do, replacing things, upgrading things to make more money over the long term. So, and we can't strategically take all of those little things or big things out based on each unit that we've made those decisions. Because like the second one I'm going to talk about here, we've upgraded significantly in the last 12 months more than the other two. So
nice.
But we're leaving that all in there because this is actually
okay. So this is with all capital improvements that happen throughout the year and everything. All right, let's go. Let's go.
All right,
totally beaching.
This one specifically rounded out 82,000 in gross revenue over the last 12 months. And then we've talked in the past about cost of ownership. So I'm going to do this to make it make sense in everybody's head and make this as simple as possible. We're going to go based on percentage. So I'm going to give you that first number. 82,000 is our gross revenue. These are all percentages of that gross revenue.
Money in our pocket. That's in our bank account, $82,000 over the course of that 12 months.
Before the deductions I'm going to go
right,
over.
I understand.
Yes.
Okay.
So on this specific unit, you got the cost of ownership is 39% of that gross revenue. That does include HOA fees because these vacation units generally have a lot of amenities and all that stuff. So this includes like the mortgage and escrow and HOA fees. So that's just your baseline cost of ownership, whether it's vacant or occupied, you're paying this amount of money.
And in this particular case, it also includes utilities, right?
No. So I'm going to get into all that.
Okay.
This is just those cost of ownership things.
Right.
And then 15% over the last 12 months, 15% of that gross revenue went towards turnover, cleaning fees, or turnover cost to the cleaning crew. 2.4% went to utilities. And then 6.8% went to repairs, upgrades, miscellaneous
capital
items.
Improvements.
So, mostly that's capital improvements. Some are repairs.
Yep.
On this one specifically, before I decided to use my brain a little bit, I didn't break the two apart. On the next two, I do.
We didn't really do any capital improvements on that one. Not too much. A little bit, but not very little.
No, there was furniture replacements.
Mostly replacement.
So about half of that's upgrades, about half of that 6.8% is upgrades, half is repairs. And I actually included special assessments. So even over the last 12 months, we're still paying special assessments towards Hurricane Sally repairs.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I'd say over half of that is actually just from that. So at the end of the day, we're basing these off of a 20% management fee. We're assuming that there's a lot of different management fees out there. We're just going with
cheap.
20%.
At Orange Beach, people would love to be able to find a 20% management fee.
And in other places, they're less. So we're just going with 20%. So the owner distribution or profit after a 20% management fee of the gross revenues is 14.5%, which comes out to just a couple dollars under $12,000.
Wow, you kidding me?
Over the last 12 months.
I'm making $1,000 a month. Off of that place.
And that's after, that's your money. That's your mortgage has been paid. There's no other costs. We're talking about all the costs on here. That is the profit. We're going to call that profit because that's what it is. Assuming you could do all these same figures yourself with self-management, we'd be talking about a 34.5% profit margin with a 12 times 3 is 36. So $36,000 is what you'd be at with these same figures if you were managing it yourself.
I need 12 of those things, Kyle. Let's buy some more.
Well, that's what we've been working on, right? So,
all right, let's get it.
All right, not to keep this boring, but we're going to run through these so we can do some actual comparisons. So that was a Orange Beach condo in Alabama and a hot vacation spot, right? And I'll briefly, since we're talking about these actual figures, I will go over on this one hot season and slow season just as some examples. September was, and this is breaking down those gross revenues per month. You got September 2021 just under $6,000, October about $6,000, November about $5,000, December about 7,600. We had a snowbird in there, so these are a little bit skewed. On another unit, they'd be more because we had to honor an old
Actually, that
agreement.
snowbird probably reduced our revenue by a third, probably, of what it would normally be.
About $5,000 was lost to that previous deal. So skipping over January and February, March goes to 5, and this is why they call it the hot season. So in April we go up to 9, in May we go to 10,000, June we're at 9,000, July we're at 14,000, August we're at 12,000. So
that's where the money's
more
made.
than double. Yeah, you're getting significant difference in the summer because it's a beach condo.
Yep.
So I thought that was important to specify there.
But you know what's more important there? What I get out of that though is it's great to see all the numbers during the summer when you're supposed to get it. But what I see there is during the winter when you don't know what you're going to do. If you're feeling uncertain about this and you're saying, "Well, what am I going to do during the winter?" It's more than covering your expenses.
Yep. Looks like
except for when the snowbird was there, it still profited every single month, did it not?
Yeah, without that snowbird it would have made it all the way through.
We have another unit right
owner
next
distributions
to it
all the way up to the snowbird. So we have another unit next. We're basing this off a directly comparable unit. And the only reason we're not giving you those numbers is that's the one we set up 10 months ago.
And
so
got it.
So the second one is also a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but this is a subdivision home with a pool in the great city of Mansfield, Texas. So if you're not familiar, Mansfield, Texas is just a suburb of it's the city just south of Arlington, which is the city where Cowboy Stadium is, the one that splits Dallas and Fort Worth. So it's the southern suburb of DFW, essentially.
It's a really good bedroom community, right, with a probably higher than average median income. Okay, and I think the median sales price right now, I think it's up to 380, 384, something like that. So that's what that's the kind of community we're looking at. Fast growing community over the past 10 to 15 years. It has just boomed, right? It's probably that boom has probably started to slow down just recently. Still growing though, and
it just so happens to be the location we are currently recording this podcast and have our office in downtown Mansfield.
Yeah, we're partial to it. So this particular home is built in the 90s.
Correct.
In an older neighborhood, no HOA, right? Right in the middle of Mansfield, and it's pretty standard setup, open floor plan, standard setup. All the bedrooms are down and a bonus room upstairs.
Correct.
Just to give people an idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah. The real estate agent in him really just came out there, didn't it?
Well, I'm trying to give people a picture of what we're talking about when we're trying to decide what am I revenuing and what kind of home is this that we're getting short-term rental revenue off of. The thing that this house really has going for it is an extremely private backyard that is all pool. Yeah, the whole backyard is pool.
And we've talked a lot about this, about the what makes yours special, what makes yours different, how pool homes can make you more money, whatever it is. We're going to show you next. I'll get into the next one is also a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a bonus room in Mansfield. Is very directly comparable, but does not have a pool. So we're going to get to see the differences here and how.
We're going to do our sports themed one, aren't we?
Yeah, that's what we're doing next. I mean, there's still a different target there, but so
love it.
So this one, Mansfield pool home. 93,000 in gross revenue over the last 12 months.
Made more than the condo.
It did, and part of that is the off season and snowbird. About the same, but there's always these buts when short-term rentals because they're less. I'd say they're less consistent, but even then, there's a lot of consistency that we're going to get into when we compare these percentages. So 93,000. So the cost of ownership on that is 29%. Yeah, 97. Why are you doing this? It's 29%, which in direct comparison is the same amount as the mortgage and escrow on everything on the Orange Beach one.
HOA.
We just don't have HOA fees, which added 10% to the previous. So 29% is where we're starting. Cleaning on this one was 12.7% of those gross revenues. And in comparison to the Orange Beach, it was 15 before. So it's actually a little bit less. Just because it's in our, I'd say the reason for that is it's in our realm, and we have a lot of in-house services we use and ways we can make that cheaper. So, but yeah, still staying a little consistent. So 12.7 to cleaning and turnovers. Utilities came in at 6.6% of that revenue. Landscaping at 2.6%, which we didn't need to do at a beach condo, but call that HOA fees, right? So repairs broken out was 2.1%. Upgrades and capital improvements were 5.5%. We did a little bit more work over the last 12 months in upgrading that place.
I would have expected that number to be higher, knowing how much we did. We did a lot of work over there.
We did it for good prices too. Yeah. So, but sometimes when you see a transformation, like say we would redo all the pillows and the color schemes and all that, and realize that we can do that all for less than you'd think. So, especially when you're going percentage of 93 grand. And then miscellaneous expenses were 2.1.
So something stood out to me there, Kyle, that people might be wondering about.
Okay.
And I started to allude to this before when we talked about the condo. And you said the utilities were at 2.9% on the condo, and now you're at 6.6%. So people might be, if people tuned into that the way I did, they might be like, whoa, why is that? Well, the main reason is because the condo's utilities are included in the HOA fee except for the electricity. So that 2.9% is really just electricity, because our Wi-Fi, TV, water, all of that stuff is included in our HOA, where on this one that you're sharing with us, the 6.6%, the utilities should include all of that stuff as well.
Yeah, it actually, the utilities is water, electricity, gas, and internet services on this one, where you wouldn't have to do that before.
All we have is electricity on the other one. So
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that, because that stood out to me, and I figured if somebody else heard that the way I did, they may be wondering why it's so different. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, so that 10% HOA fee that we paid on the previous one, and 2.4% of utilities, 12.4, where if you take it on this side, you got 6.6 plus 2.6 of landscaping, comes out to...
It brings your HOA down a little bit if you consider...
Yeah, you're paying for your own provided amenities.
Yep.
So, and the 2.1 being of miscellaneous, I should have categorized that better. A lot of that's pool service. So it seems kind of high, but keeping the amenity everyone's there for up is actually more than you think. So, and then the final number. So at a 20% management fee, after all those things I just mentioned, you're looking at a 21.5 or 21.4% profit.
Wow.
After 20%. So if you were self-managing, it'd be 41.4% of that 92 grand on this specific.
Y'all, this is
the figure for that is just a few dollars under 20 grand.
A few dollars under 20 grand for the entire year.
After a 20% management fee.
Goodness gracious. That's even better. Let's get more of those.
Yeah.
Now we're up to... Now I can feed me and my wife. Now we can feed me and my wife.
Hey, someone would have said we should get more of these. No, I'm just kidding.
This is, I know you got one more to do, Kyle, but I just want to remind people, this is passive income, right? This is what people are talking about, creating businesses that create passive income. A business would kill for that profit margin. Any business would. You don't think Verizon or Amazon or any of those would kill for a 24% profit margin?
21.4, but they definitely would. And that's why we're doing this, because I talked to a lot of people last week, actually, when I told somebody to keep an eye out for this, because they're like, I see all these TikTok videos and screenshots of the Airbnb payouts, and I just feel like it can't be real. Like there's got to have other expenses, or that's not what they're putting in their account. And like, yeah, maybe some are more true than others, or whatever it is. So that's why we wanted to do this. I'm reading you numbers from the actual reports that we give our clients. These are straight up, these profit margins are from a line figure of money I sent to people, And the reason we're saying after the 20% management fee is that's why we're giving you this passive amount, because that's after the fee you pay to make this completely hands-off.
There you go.
So
there you go.
That's the goal, right?
That's the goal, man. That's always the goal. Whenever you can set up a business and or an investment instrument like this that's going to create passive income for you, that's how you do it. That's how you win. That's how you build wealth. That's how you set up the rest of your life. That's how you set up your legacy and your generations to come, right? If your generations before you weren't able or didn't know how to do this, you should be doing it for your following generations.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to start doing it.
I love it. The inspiration. So we're going to get into the third one. So this is the Mansfield pool home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. No, Mansfield home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Pretty close to the center of Mansfield. Location isn't too much different. Just doesn't have a pool. And I will admit it's a couple hundred square feet smaller, but
so newer comparable. Home, a little bit newer than the other one. It's a single story. There isn't any bonus. There is a bonus room, but it's not quite like the one that we talked about. Like you said, no pool. So one thing I want people to understand is these are homes that are right smack in the middle of a subdivision. I know you said that, but I want people to understand. Mm-hmm. These are common everyday homes that people are living in. The plumber is coming home with his plumbing truck and parking it in front of his truck, in front of the house every day. These are normal people, right? That in normal neighborhoods in the middle of Mansfield. This is nothing special.
They have purposes, like they're near things, and we've themed them to get stays. But like that's the other thing that's interesting about these numbers, is they all have different purposes, right? You got vacation homes where you get a lot more on weekends, and these first two are more short-term stays, where this last one I'm going to talk about, we're more open and more accepting of longer stays, like week or 2-week, 3-week stays.
And this one was one of the first, if not the first, we started, right?
No, it was one of the first three, I believe. I think it's the third one we did.
It's been a while, and I've kind of lost track of where we started. But if this wasn't the first one, it was one of the very first ones. And our thinking behind it was it's really close to Big League Dreams, the softball fields, right? And so we were thinking the tournaments coming in and people coming in at the time, we thought that would be the draw. Before you get into the numbers, Kyle, has that proven to be true? Like, as what I mean by that, is that the main draw of this home?
I'd say it's now the secondary, because it is the draw, but the need of this home has shown itself to be locals needing places for interim stays, because there isn't anywhere in Mansfield, or really anywhere close to Mansfield, for a displaced family with school to get to every morning and all these things, to stay nearby and get a home, the floors in their house replaced for 2 weeks or whatever it is.
How about family coming in? Yeah. How about family coming in to visit for Thanksgiving, and I don't have enough room in my home?
Mm-hmm. No, it's been its new primary purpose. I mean, it's still set up, and our target's still for sports theme, BLD stays, that kind of thing, but we've met the demand of longer stays and family stays.
So I think what I'm getting at, though, Kyle, is I think you and I have both been through this process of learning over the years. We're not so surprised by it anymore, but I think at first we were surprised by the amount of people coming in and staying in this home for events, for visits that we never even considered. My daughter has a volleyball tournament in Grapevine. Well, great. Why are you staying 35 minutes away? And what you don't realize is that people don't really have a concept of a map when they're finding these things. They're looking in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Maybe it's showing it to something with them within 30-minute drive or something. I don't know exactly how it works, but the point is, people are going all over the place and still picking up our listing and finding it and wanting to stay there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that's about ways to be successful and do all this. But one of the main reasons I wanted to bring this one in is I'll start off by saying you're going to notice there's a lower revenue figure. And for comparison of all these, this is why the only actual, dollar sign number we're giving you is a starting gross revenue so that you can compare these
this one
percentages. No. So, well, this one's significantly less. $65,000 is the gross.
Oh, so I'll be able to feed my mother-in-law now? Okay. All right. Good.
65,000. So in comparison to the pool home we were just talking about that was at 93, this one's at 65. But because of reasons a lot of reasons we just described, sometimes you change operation targets to minimize expenses, and it's this whole balance.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost of ownership on this one, including HOA fees, is 29%.
Almost exactly what the other one was.
Yeah, this 29% figure came up on all three of these. So, maybe use that in your analysis to see that's how we didn't plan these all to be 29%. That's just kind of how it worked out. So cleaning and turnover services was 6.2%. So you may instantly notice that is significantly less than the last two we were talking about. We started saying 15. We were at nearly 13 on the last one. This one's at 6.3.
Because we typically have longer stays there, right?
Yes. So there's less turnovers. There's less cleaning tasks. So, and we've made it that way. Utilities, 6.3. So that's pretty much in line with the last Mansfield home we had. And this is for the same reasons. You're paying for everything: utilities, gas, internet, electricity, gas, internet. And then landscaping and pest control is 5.9% of that number. So these feel like bigger figures because of the lower revenue than we mentioned before. Repairs was 7.9%. It's definitely higher, but we just had a big repair in the beginning of summer.
Like the other one, and even more so than the other one, this is a property that we've been operating for quite some time, for years, and it needed some freshening up. And this year we chose to come in and...
So that figure is 5.4. Upgrades and setup upgrades over the year was 5.4. 7.9 was just repairs.
Got it.
Needed a new air handler on an AC. Either of those things even happened in short-term rentals. But
that's right.
And then miscellaneous was 0.8%. So, but the great thing is even after all that, we're $30,000 less on our revenue, okay, than we were on the previous Mansfield home.
Okay.
The profit and distribution to owner is 15.6% after a 20% management fee.
Wow.
At a little over $10,000. So just under that $1,000 a month. So definitely making less than the pool home. But in comparison, from the beginning, after the 20% management fee, we said 14.5%. Then we said 21.4%. And now we're at 15.6%. So on a percent of revenue basis, this one beat this beat the Orange Beach condo.
Wow, that's incredible. And
not more money in your pocket, but
there were a lot of either unexpected or unnecessary expenses in that. We're giving you real numbers here, right? So on a normal year, there's a lot of capital improvements that we put into that home that we wouldn't normally do.
Yeah,
And like you said, changing an air handler, and that kind of stuff, that's once every, 15, 20 years you're doing that. And there's not a lot of big expenses that go into maintaining these homes. Those are the biggest ones, right? So,
we've talked about this in our other episodes about short-term rentals. Is one nice thing is you have more control to minimize upgrades, but also minimize repairs because you're in there regularly, constantly. You're not going to let a tenant slowly deteriorate over 2 years and now you need a whole fresh new paint job.
You go in, you make
someone nicks a wall, you fix it.
Constant tweaks.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of big giant repair jobs.
Because I'd say in owning rentals, it can feel like all this stuff comes at once. Like tenant gives you a move out notice. Now you need a new AC and you need to paint the whole place and you need new flooring and blah, blah, blah. Like all these problems didn't come at once. You now have to deal with them all at once. They deteriorated over time and probably could have been avoided to some degree with better residents or a turnover crew and a management company in there twice a week. So definitely get more eyes on it. It's just the nature of this business. So to keep things general, let's go back over this. So first one, monthly unit cost was 39%. Second one, 29%. Third one, 29%. Still pretty consistent. Varying revenue ranges. Cleaning on the first one was 15%. Second one, 12.7 to 13%, and 6.2 on the third one. So you had some consistency with, I'd say, the shorter term stays on the first two. Longer term stays got you a little bit less. And utilities, 2.4 on the first, 6.6 on the second, 6.3 on the third. So it kind of tells you where you're paying for all of them versus some of them.
It would be interesting, Kyle, to know, and I know you didn't do this and prepare for this, but it sure would be interesting to have an understanding of, since we used a couple homes that we could have rented, we could have long-term rented, right? I wonder what the difference in revenue is. If I made, on that last one, if we made $10,000 over the course of a year, right, in net profit, right? Wonder what that looks like if we had long-term rented that.
Well, just looking at numbers,
$2,200 a month.
Let's say you're getting $1,000 a month in this profit margin. We've helped a lot of investors do their analysis on whether they're going to buy a home. Do any of them target $1,000 a month in cash flow? Yeah, no,
that's a lot. Most of them tell me, well, as long as I make a couple $100, that's what most people are shooting for, a couple $100 a month. And
so say it's 200, right? Like I know one investor, that's the number. He wants at least 200 month in cash flow. So even if we do 1,000, we're doing 5 times better. If we're at, this other one that's 20,000, let's call that 1,800. That's 8 times better. Yep. So and you can get, obviously you're going to generally pay higher management fees, but it's at the end of the day, it's an investment with numbers, and that's why we're giving them to you. Yep. So, and I can't give you all these same comparison and figures across our whole short-term rental portfolio, partially because there's different units with different situations, and we don't have all these numbers on all of them. They do on these three.
And they're not ours. We're feeling comfortable about giving you some examples of homes that are ours, right, that we own.
Correct.
And I mean, we're not going to give you numbers on other people's
that
homes.
We have a full, not even that they're ours, that we have a full picture of all the costs down to the profit. Some people don't put their mortgages on us and what their other costs are. So, but this is based on our entire portfolio over the year of gross revenues, or all of the units we manage, own, all that, because these items we do always pay for. So, from those gross revenues, the cleaning and turnover cost is 14%, 13.94, 14%. So that stayed consistent with the first two I gave you. Is 15%, 13%. This one across 16, this is over the last 12 months. So over 16 different short-term rentals, we got 14%.
Yeah,
in cleanings.
Love it.
So, 16 because that's what I put in this report, but that's most of them. And then utilities, 3.4. Actually came in at the average of these three that I gave you, because a lot of them, I'd say about half of them are like this first one where they have water included in the HOA and varying factors. And repairs, 7.4%. So, and
seems pretty consistent also.
It does seem pretty consistent. I mean, we had 7.9, we had 2.1, we had 6.8. So, I give you these figures to show you that it's not just consistent over different operation targets and different products.
An entire portfolio
of significantly different products and significantly different targets. Essentially saying that these are figures you can use.
You can count on them.
Well, yeah, you can count on them or use them in your analysis, because one of the biggest things, it's hard for us to give them to people without doing something like this, but one huge thing you don't find out there is, how do I analyze if I'm going to make money off an Airbnb? Well, does the math figure out your gross? That's why I gave you all these numbers on a percentage. So the one thing you can get out of people and sites and whatever is estimated annual gross revenue. So I just gave you a bunch of percentages. So if you do the math on your estimated annual gross revenue, how much are your cleanings going to be? How many are you going to have? All right, this comes out to 30%. Well, probably not going to be a good good deal for you. We're talking about 14% here, 15 at a max.
Kyle, I want to. Everybody, there's a popular program out there that we use also, right? That people use to do exactly what you just said, right? They can plug in an address and it'll tell you what your average revenue should be. I want to talk about that a little bit for a moment. Now that you've given us these real numbers on 3 of our units, this is something I remind people of all the time. And I try not to push it too hard, but I want to remind people, when you have something that's professionally managed, it should revenue a lot more than one that's not professionally managed for a whole bunch of reasons. I'm not going to get into it for this conversation because we've gotten into it in our past podcasts a lot, right? But when I go on that site or on that program that I'm referring to, and I plug in one of these 3, let's say the pool home that made 93. If I put that address in
93.
It's going to pull up for me 6 to 9 comparable homes nearby and give me what their average daily rate is, what their total annual revenue is. It's going to tell me what their occupancy days are. It's going to give me all kinds of great information.
Based on days available, yeah.
Right. What I know I'm going to see if I were to do that, and I wish we had done that before here, so we could bring that, because I think that'd be an interesting insight. What I know I'm going to see is a much lower average daily revenue than what we're actually giving you, right? Almost every time, the revenue from that comes up on that site is so much lower than what we actually get.
Well, because sometimes it's not a full picture, you know?
It's not a full picture, but it also, look, every single one of those comps that we're up against right there, they're not doing as well for a whole bunch of different reasons as we are.
Oh,
they're not operating as a business, yeah. 1. 2, they may not have their home available for the entire year. Maybe somebody that's just snowbirding and leaving their home available like for 6 months out of the year. And that isn't in the picture. But I always tell people, here's the report, but I can guarantee you we are going to crush these numbers.
Well, and you say we didn't do that before. I have done that before. I did that recently. It was easy. I just evaluated a property in Mansfield, Texas. That was it. It gave you the top properties in Mansfield, Texas.
And they happen to be ours.
2 which were ours, and they were ours at a significantly higher revenue for similar properties than the other 4. Mm-hmm. And we used that, and I'd call it in a pitch, but in reality, we were just showing them like we show anybody else. But that's where the credibility comes, because it's just like any other professional service. You expect them to do better than you could do it yourself. Mm-hmm. They expect them to have knowledge of the marketing and what sites need and the ability to do things. So you know, that's where the professional management comes in. Because like on these, you saw how much more you could make by doing it yourself. Mm-hmm. But let's turn that around. You can own only these 3.
You won't get anywhere near those 3 numbers.
Well,
87,
you
93,
won't,
and 65.
What we just gave you after paying 20% management fee, making this passive, right, adds up to the median income in the United States. So you have just about the median income of a passive income from owning 3 properties. So
I love it. Kyle, I'm sitting here thinking about our audience, and are we inspiring our audience, right? And I'm thinking about a friend of mine that texted me recently that said they're on their way to Tennessee to set up their 9th STR, loving the podcast and can't wait to contribute. I can't wait to have him on, Kyle. And I don't even know the details of his story, but if somebody is on their way to set up their 9th in one market, all Gatlinburg area, Tennessee, if they're setting up their 9th one, what does that tell you?
That it's working.
That it's working. The first 8 are killing it. Otherwise, I'm not going to go do my 9th. I'm not doing my 8th unless the first 7 were doing good. And I mean, you can keep going.
The greatest part is, and this is a different way of a lot of things we talked about. The greatest part is when you have when that 8th, The 1 through 8th is paying for the setup of your 9th. And,
yeah, exactly.
And then
there you
your
go.
1 through 9th is paying for the setup of your 10th. And then, because we just talked about 3, that in a year you'd have somewhere around $50,000 to do with what you will. Not what you will, but, we're not talking about state and federal income tax here, but this is money that you can go put into another investment.
It's a great point, Kyle, because I have an account, right, that all of my rental account income goes into. And I always encourage all of my clients and all of my investors to do the same thing. Every time. I don't care whether you have 1 property or you have 28 properties. It doesn't matter. I want you to have a separate account that money goes into so you can watch it grow. Kyle, to your point, and that, your expenses come out of that account also, right? Mm-hmm. My mortgages come out of that account and everything. I have a pile of money sitting there so that when I, and it's for nothing more than what you just said. It's that next property that I identify that I want to buy. I've got some money there. I don't have to wonder where the money's coming from.
It's the last R. Burr.
The last R in Burr. That's right.
So you can repeat. So we talked, those numbers are primarily for operations, and after, I'd say, to be fair, this isn't, we could do a whole podcast of the strategy and numbers that go into the first 6 months of a property, but we wanted to keep this into what you can expect and what you can analyze. But here is just a quick example of a setup. People always underestimate setup because they under deliver what they're supposed to set up in an experience, and they try to cut corners
when they go
in
over
a
budget.
setup.
They freak out.
That's the number one thing you can't do. So, and what I'm going to talk about here is a small, call it 1,300 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. No, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Pretty standard. Not a huge living room. Not a huge dining room. The property already had a dining room table and beds in each room. Just call that blank slate with basic furniture, right? No TVs, nothing. It just had, a bed in each room and the table. So the base furniture you can get, right? To keep this really simple, we quoted the entire setup that needed to be that remained after that at $15,000, and that is where people are like, "We already got the furniture. How are you going to spend another $15,000?" And I'm like, well, the small things add up, and you can't neglect the small things.
And the things you're not thinking about.
The things you're not thinking about, the experience. The experience costs money. What do you have in your house? How many empty drawers do you have? How many dressers do you have that are empty? How many kitchens do you have that are completely empty with nothing in them?
Here's something people don't think about. Let's just take this one small detail, and this is one of many, okay? How about bed bug covers for pillows and mattresses? If you look at a standard queen, just take a standard queen ensemble, okay? You have one bed bug mattress. That's going to cost you at least $30, if maybe even $40, just for that cover. We're not talking linens. We're just talking about the cover that you put around the mattress so that you don't have to worry about bed bugs or anything else for that matter, right? Mm-hmm. And now you put those around the pillows because we want to protect our guests from this thing, right?
Bed bug mattress protectors on the mattress and the pillows.
So you have at least 2 pillows, at least, on each bed.
Shit, 4.
You probably have more. You should have more. Let's just say 2. How much are each one of those? A pack of 2, I believe, is $25, something like that. $30
no.
More.
It's like
more
$35 per mattress protector.
I'm already. If I only have 2 pillows, I'm already $80 into this, and I haven't even put linens on it, and that's only 1 bed. And it's probably more like $100, $120 per bed. And if I have 3 bedrooms, what is that? That's almost $1,000, right?
And this doesn't include labor.
And we haven't even put linens on yet.
Time to do this and to,
I'm
buy
doing,
it in some cases or get it from Amazon or whatever.
I'm using this as an example to demonstrate. This is one thing that nobody thinks about, and I've already spent $1,000 and nobody puts it in their budget.
That's correct. I mean, how much one room can cost you is let's go on this, in this example, in the the 15,000 I just told you. So the kitchen, just summing up the kitchen, it doesn't include any of those things, is 2,000 in this estimate. 2,000. That was an empty kitchen, right? And that's because you need dinnerware, flatware, glassware, cookware, bakeware, coffee maker, coffee cups, pot holders, dish towels, toaster, blender, kettle, spices and spice rack, dish sponge, cooking oils, mesh coffee filter, ground coffee sugar and creamer, cooking utensils, knife block, measuring cups, mixing bowls, cutting boards, food storage. I'm almost on trash can, soap dispenser, silverware and utensil drawer, organizer, surge protector with USB ports for charging your phone, and in the section that's designed for that, decor.
How many people do we market this home for? How many people do we market this home? 8.
So you need enough to supply those 8 in all that. So
right, that's the one mistake people make. Also, right? They go get.
I'm not being ridiculous by going through this list. I'm saying this is just the kitchen, like outdoor use drinkware, outdoor use dinnerware, because we have a setup outside for eating outdoors, right? You have to supply the utensils for that. Sponge holder. We've thought of it all on here. I always find this one funny. An anti-fatigue mat. Why do you think we have it specified on there? Because you put this, you spend $2 more on a kitchen mat that has that padding in it. People love it. Mm-hmm. We've found that out.
Yep.
That costs us $2. It's not being ridiculous. It's from feedback. I think you just got to throw money for decor on there. But all those things I just mentioned, that's a cheap kitchen. It was $2,000, right? And we only got through the kitchen. We didn't get through the outdoor backyard with the setup for cooking and grilling, or the other 3 bedrooms, or like you said, the small things.
The things
right?
you don't think about.
Yeah. Let's see. Because it can be cheaper, but they add up. Like, how many rooms do you have? Even if every room costs $1,000 and every bathroom costs $1,000, in a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
Every room's going to cost you at least 2.
No, a kitchen's actually one of the more expensive. So, but the backyard adds up. Let's see. Let's living room, right? Most people would think about a living room as one of these options. Living room is going to cost us $1,500. It's a smaller list: sofa, floor rug, TV, surround sound speaker. Maybe you don't need that. Good thing that's not even included in the price. Some of these bonus items we have zeros for because they're optional, right? That was one of them. But you got a utility tray for the coffee table, surge protectors with USB ports, decor, throw blankets, throw pillows, pillow covers. It doesn't sound sounds like duh, right?
So
it's $1,500. It all adds up.
Well, you're making a point here. I feel like you're getting to a point. What is the point?
The point is you have to think about every item in every room for the maximum guest count. I think that's probably the biggest place people fail. Oh, this place could totally sleep 10 people. But I'm going to put 2 of everything in every room.
Right.
Because most of the time it's only going to be 2 people. Well, you don't set it up for most of the time. You have to set it up for the worst case scenario, the 8 people staying there that you're offering it to.
And I guess the reason why you're kind of going through this right now is to demonstrate that if you're going to get these numbers that we've talked about, this is what you've got to do.
Yeah. These are things you have to, you can't. We could go through another example of people who tried to get that. We sucked it up management and managed them, but they didn't do a lot of these things. I should compare those numbers to these, and they're going to be significantly different percentages because the gross revenue is lower. It all comes down to that, right? You should be getting that gross revenue. And one thing you mentioned is linens. It's probably one of the biggest costs is linens, because if you want to have an efficient process and lower cleaning fees, you need to have the ability to have efficient turnovers and same-day turnovers, meaning that you need at least 2 sets of everything. So add up all the linens you need, times it by 2. In reality, times it by 3, because you want one to put out, you want one to be there, and you want one to take. See? There's better, sometimes you can clean it on site and get away with 2, but at the end of the day, those costs don't even equate to, you think when we're bringing in 73,000, you think or 93,000 a year, that we're going to second guess spending the extra 500 for an extra set of linens to make sure that we make that 93 and not 83?
I'm not.
No, you're not.
You know why? Because you know what's affected by all that too? All the things you're talking about affect reviews. And there's nothing more that affects your revenue more than reviews.
Yep.
And everything you're talking about right now, all the ways you can cut corners, I mean, it's all going to affect your reviews.
You're not cutting corners, you're cutting into your revenue.
Yep.
So,
yep. Good job, Kyle. That's man, way to wrap up. Like what a great series. Like people are wondering, people are watching people on TikTok and Reels and Facebook bragging, right? And you're right. We don't know whether their brags are right, whether they're wrong, whether there's probably truth in all of it, right? We just don't know what they're like. Are they, to your point, I can go through my emails and see that the Airbnb that I had a reservation for this amount and this amount and this amount and this amount. I can add them all up and go, whoa, right? It's not my real number, is it? It's not the real number that's going into my bank account, which is what you just gave us.
And a lot of people now on social media especially are talking about and showing people and giving them numbers on rental arbitrage, this is what we just described. This is not rental arbitrage. We own these.
That's right.
And I'm not even going to get deep into the difference because unless you know what rental arbitrage is, there's a lot bigger risks in it for different reasons. So we could do a whole episode about that. Maybe we will.
Well, maybe next year we'll be able to do a deeper dive into rental arbitrage because we are doing some of that. We're playing with it a little bit just so that we can.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have 11 of them, 13 of them. So, but we can get into why I'm saying used to.
That's right. That's right.
So, but if you guys have any questions about anything, you want some numbers, you want us to analyze one of your short-term rentals, manage them, really, it's what you need. So give us a call, 817-818-9039. If you made it all the way through this podcast, I'm going to tell you that if you press star after typing that number, you will get me directly.
Ooh.
Yeah. And the direct number to John is the little end button. No, I'm just kidding. 817-818-9039. Shoot us an email. Show me the money at wearetpm.com. Tell us how much you want to make on your potential short-term rental, and I'll tell you if that's possible. But,
love it. Good job, Kyle.
Thank you guys for tuning in again. This is the third leg of our little short-term rental gauntlet we just went on. So if you have any other questions about that, come talk to us in the great city of downtown Mansfield or give us a call. So
love it. We're gonna have Trevor on next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Trevor Kerr with what was it? Gateway Mortgage. Talk about arms, not legs.
We're gonna talk about arms. Let's get it.
All right. Tune in and goodbye.
Later.